Part 87. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 861. Chapter 861 The Low-Key God of Wealth. When Mrsine went out to socialize, she heard too many people complain. Every time she couldn't help but feel lucky for her daughter to enter a good family like the Lee family. So, she turned on the nagging mode again and said, "Wanner, you must be filial to your grandmother, and be kind to your sister-in-law. Be more diligent and do more needlework for them." Wanner was helpless after hearing this, and Xin Ning even grabbed 2 oranges and ran away, saying that he was going to find his father and would come back for a reunion dinner at noon. Not to mention that Wanner was at home, but that Mrs. Lee took her granddaughter and granddaughter-in-law directly to the best jewelry store in Zindu. The shopkeeper of the jewelry store has the most vicious eyes. There is no reputable person in Zindu that he doesn't recognize. As soon as Mrs. Lee waited for someone to get out of the car, he hurried to the door. Old Mrs. Lee didn't show any airs. She smiled and said a few words to the shopkeeper, and the group went up to the second floor. There are other guests on the second floor, who are actually acquaintances. Dean Gu and Gu Qingqing were choosing jewelry. Gu Qingqing was hesitating for a long time between a set of pearl headbands and a set of agate headbands. Suddenly seeing the Li family and good news, Gu Qingqing was so happy that she immediately stepped forward to salute. Dean Gu also smiled and sat with Mrs. Li talking and drinking tea. Wen Juan took the stars and asked the shopkeeper to get some bracelets and necklaces suitable for children. In recent years, cyclamen has been almost exclusively supported by family members. Li Zhensheng, the uncle, is very generous. Not only does he pay his salary every month, but he also pays more dividends at the end of the year. Wen Juan's purse is very bulging. It's the Chinese New Year. She plans to make needlework for her elders and sister-in-law, and buy some jewelry for the stars, crescent moon, and Yuan. Jiyan was dragged over by Gu Qingqing to help her choose jewelry. Jiyan saw that the color of the agate was very bright, and Gu Qingqing was rarely so public on weekdays, so she asked, "Is there any happy event for Sister Gu?" Gu Qingqing blushed and responded in a low voice, "My family has arranged a marriage for me, and we will get married next autumn." Jiyan subconsciously calculated that the Gu family planned to marry Gu Qingqing after she got hairpins. At the age of 15, I was still a junior high school student in my previous life, but here I am actually about to start a family. Well, Sister Gu will not stay at home for 2 more years. Jiyan was a little reluctant and hugged Gu Qingqing's arm coquettishly. "Sister Gu is married, and if we continue to play turtle, there will be one less person." Gu Qingqing laughed when she heard this, pinched her, and said angrily, "I thought you were reluctant to let me go, but it turns out you were afraid that no one would play cards with you." After saying that, she sighed and whispered, "I don't want to get married so early, but he has no mother and his father is also seriously ill. He hopes that I will come over soon and be the director of the family." His eyes lit up after hearing the good news, and then he realized that it was not that the Gu family didn't care about their daughter, but that they had their own considerations. There is no mother-in-law to control her when she enters the house, and her father-in-law will soon pass away. This kind of marriage is simply too difficult to find. Once your daughter gets married, she is the master of the family, so you don't have to worry about being punished. She quickly asked Gu Qingqing to help her order the set of agate jewelry. The bride to be married naturally had to dress up joyfully and beautifully. After a while, Dean Gu took Gu Qingqing and left first. Jiyan asked the shopkeeper to wrap up the remaining pearl jewelry and save it for Gu Qingqing to add makeup next year. In this way, Gu Qingqing is happy, and she is not afraid that others will not like the gift she gave her. Mrs. Lee had no time to spare and was not polite. She bought 2 pairs of gold bracelets, 3 pairs of jade bracelets and 2 pairs of gold hairpins in one go. In addition, I also ordered some gold and silver tassels in the shape of flowers and fruits, in case guests at home bring their children during the Chinese New Year, and they cannot be sent back empty-handed. Jiyan is a rich little woman. Although she has stored a lot of jewelry in the space, it does not prevent her from liking the new and hating the old. Several people, old and young, were satisfied with their purchases and went to the silk and satin shop again. The shopkeeper of the jewelry store brought the young man to the door. The young man couldn't help but sigh, "Shopkeeper, this old lady of the Li family doesn't look angry in her clothes, but she is so generous with her gifts." The shopkeeper knocked him on the head and took the opportunity to teach him a lesson: don't be like a dog looking down on others. The Li family doesn't want to be in the limelight. Don't even think about it. Cyclamen is the most profitable restaurant in the new capital. Li's, the most profitable dim sum shop, is still Li's. The broken gold beach is the biggest treasure trove of Tianwu, and jade melons are sold for 10,000 taels. In terms of income, there are not many that can compare to the Li family. When I come back in the future, I will definitely serve you diligently. Yes, yes, shopkeeper, I have remembered it, the boy responded quickly, stretched his head and looked at the Li family's carriage, trying to remember these gods of wealth. It is cold in winter and there are few customers in the restaurant. It stands to reason that business will be bleak. But Cyclamen breaks this rule. In the lobby, between the seats, the boys shouted loudly from time to time. A bowl of boiled meat slices and a plate of spicy crabs. Here is a plate of mapo tofu and a plate of spicy chicken. The spicy dishes that everyone usually avoids have now completely transformed and become the favorite of all guests. Nearly every table has one or two of them. It's spicy enough to make you sweat profusely, and the coldness of winter seems to have been driven away. In the back kitchen, Jie Huan and a group of cooks and handymen were also very busy and sweating profusely. After finally going out to take a breath, Jie Huan saw Grandma bringing his wife, children, and sister. He hurriedly greeted him happily, hugged his son and gave him a bump, and then invited everyone to the side room. "Grandma, why did you come out for a walk today? If you want something to eat, I'll go and make it for you." Jie Huan was talking to Grandma and stroking her sister's hair. She guessed that it was her sister's fault that Grandma was willing to go out for a walk. Jiyan climbed up the pole and immediately ordered with a smile, "Brother, I want to eat boiled fish." "No, I have acne on my face." Orange Mrs. Li and Wenjuan spoke in unison, breaking Jiyan's good wishes. Jiyan was discouraged and lowered his head. Last time, she was greedy and ate a pot of boiled fish by herself. As a result, when she woke up early, her face almost lost its original appearance. The family was frightened and kept her under strict supervision for 3 days, eating a light diet before the acne on her face faded away. But from then on, the boiled fish completely disappeared from her world. Jie Huan was amused by her sister and laughed, and quickly coaxed her, "There are many customers today, so the fish is sold out, but there are still a lot of prawns. I'll make some salt and pepper prawns for you." Before the good news could be spoken, someone outside the door smiled and said, "It's better to come early than to be lucky. Brother Huan cooks an extra plate and I want to drink 2 glasses. Subsequently, the door was pushed open, and Li Lao Er walked in with a smile on his face, followed by Li Lao Si. Old Mrs. Li was stunned for a moment, stood up suddenly, and asked, "Second brother, is Jie Yi coming out?" Li Lao nodded and said, "My mother guessed half right, it is General Tang from the Heilan army who has returned and has already entered the palace to see the emperor. Tomorrow, at the court meeting, Heilan's army will present prisoners and receive rewards. If the merits and demerits of the family's righteousness are equal to each other, we can be released from prison and go home." "Great," Jiyan cheered, "tomorrow, I will pick up the third brother and take him home." I'll go too, Mrs. Li's eyes were red, "when I see Jie Yi, I will give this brat a few good slaps." Everyone laughed when they heard it, but no one took it seriously. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 862. Chapter 862. Their meal tickets are gone. Before Ji Yi could return home, the old lady had prepared several sets of new clothes and shoes for the meeting. The old lady loved her grandson even more, so how could she slap him? Within half an hour, the food was served. Jia Huan not only made salt and pepper shrimp and braised shrimp, but also added 4 new dishes and steamed well-melted minced meat custard for her grandma and son. The family talked, laughed, and ate happily. After dinner, Mrs. Li went home to prepare a warm bed for her grandson. No one was trying to stop him. The old man was busy with his work, so he didn't panic. Early on the next morning, after dinner, the Li family, except Wenjuan and Wanner who were taking care of the children at home, took the car to the city again. They parked their carriage opposite the side gate of Jingzhaoyan and waited all the time. Fortunately, there was a charcoal basin in the carriage, which allowed me to make hot tea, warm my hands and stomach, and I was wearing thick clothes, so I didn't feel cold at all. Those who make a living in the government office are not fools, they are all smart people. With the Li family's posture, the prison boss immediately guessed that Li Jiyi was about to be released from prison after receiving the news. So he quickly asked someone to prepare things, opened the cell again, personally led Li Jiyi to take a bath, and even asked a craftsman to help him shave his beard and rearrange his bun. After putting on the cotton robe that the Li family had sent in before, Li Jiyi was no different from the noble prince walking by on the street. It was completely invisible. He had been in jail for many days. Back in the prison, Lao Huang stared at his greatly changed companion for a long time, not daring to step forward. Is this still a fellow sufferer who fights with him and eats chicken legs with him? Li Jiyi was so amused that he laughed loudly. Finally, he sat down with Lao Huang and said, "Brother, I don't know where you are from, but you must not be a treacherous person. Besides, it's a pity that you're locked up here because of your skills. Why don't you go south with me to kill the Japanese pirates? You've learned all your skills in vain." Lao Huang yawned. He didn't know whether he didn't understand it or whether it didn't reach his ears. Ji Yi didn't mind either and directly helped him make the decision. "Okay, I'll take it as your consent. You wait here for 2 more days. I'll take you out after I solve your case." After saying that, he patted Lao Huang on the shoulder. Lao Huang actually lay down and fell asleep. Soon, it was lunchtime, and several jailers looked eagerly at the door. It's a pity that they didn't wait for Cyclamen's food box, but they did wait for Mr. Fuyan and Mr. Li Laosi. The prison boss quickly opened the door and invited Li Jiyi over. Li Laosi patted his nephew's back hard and said with a smile, "Just now in the court, General Tang offered prisoners. The emperor was very happy and gave heavy rewards to the Highland army. Originally, you should have been promoted 2 levels, but you killed people on the street, even if you were a fugitive, and it hindered the peace of the new capital. Therefore, your merits are worth the crime. From now on, you should follow General Tang back to the East China Sea and continue killing pirates and Japanese bandits." "Yes, fourth Uncle Ji Yi responded with a smile, then knelt down and kowtowed to the palace. Finally, the uncle and nephew exchanged a few polite words with Mr. Fuyan before walking out of the prison. A group of jailers followed him unconsciously, each with a grimace on his face. Their meal tickets are gone. In the Li family's carriage, Ji Yin half opened the window, and his face hurt from the cold wind. He lowered his head and was about to rub it when he heard Mu Ju say, "Come out." Ji Yin quickly looked up, and sure enough, the person following his father was his third brother whom he hadn't seen for a long time. "Nai, it's my third brother." Ji Yin was the first to jump out of the car and then helped Mrs. Li down. Jiaran, Jiawan, Brother Li, Brother Mao and Lu Yang had already strode over. They surrounded Ji Yi in the middle, one patted his shoulders and the other punched his fist. The brothers finally met, and they were all extremely excited. Jia was hugging brother Cat when he suddenly saw his grandma standing opposite with her face full of tears. His eyes turned red at that time. He rushed over in a few steps and fell to his knees. "Grandma, your grandson is unfilial and makes you worry." Mrs. Lee bent down and hugged her grandson. She choked with sobs for a long time before cursing, "Bad boy, do you know that grandma is old and can't bear the trouble anymore? Grandma doesn't want gold or silver, she just wants you all to be safe. Never come to this place again." "Grandma, I was wrong. I don't dare anymore, I was wrong." Ji hugged her grandma's waist and clearly felt the old lady's whole body trembling. "My parents are here and I won't travel far." At this moment, he deeply understood the weight behind these 6 words. He is young and vigorous, and he has countless ideals and wishes. But he never imagined how worried and concerned the elders were behind his back. "Grandma, it's too cold here. My third brother hasn't eaten yet. Let's go home quickly. We have plenty of time to go home, so please speak slowly." Jian was afraid that grandma would be hurt, and seeing that both her third uncle and mother were wiping away tears, she quickly stepped forward to give her a few words of advice. Okay, go home quickly." Sure enough, the old lady felt sorry for her grandson and immediately got into the carriage. The crowd came in a big way and left quickly. Soon, 4 carriages left the city gate. Ji, of course, was in the same car as grandma. Mrs. Lee held her grandson's hand and was completely relieved when she saw that he was cleanly dressed and his face was rosy, showing that he had not suffered any hardship in prison. After the distressed feeling passed, the old lady's temper got worse. She pinched her grandson's arm hard several times, but unfortunately his muscles were like iron knots and he couldn't pinch her. She changed to pinching her ears and scolded, "You brat, you came back from the south and didn't know how to go home. You actually stayed in the city and caused such a big trouble. Tell me, do you still see me as a grandma in your eyes? Have your wings become stiff and you no longer consider yourself a member of the Lee family?" "Ouch, oops, grandma, it hurts, it hurts. I was wrong, I know I was wrong." Ji wanted to open his mouth to apologize, and he felt even more regretful in his heart. "You shouldn't have cleaned yourself up just now, the more embarrassed you are, the better. This way, grandma will feel distressed for a while longer, and he won't have to be pinched. Sister, please help me quickly." Ji stretched out his hand and tugged on his sister's sleeve to ask for help. Unfortunately, Jian smiled and sat eating potato chips, and stuffed a piece into his brother's mouth. "Brother, I can't help you. I can only feed you 2 potato chips. If you gain strength, you can carry it a little longer. You heartless girl, I avenged you, but you actually repaid me with kindness." Ji felt that the force on his ears was a little weak, and he quickly argued with his sister at the top of his lungs. "Brother, you are still too young. Remember, beware of beautiful women like me in the future, because beautiful women are the most vicious and evil." Jian raised her feet and bit the potato chips more and more loudly. Mrs. Lee finally couldn't bear it anymore, let go of her grandson, and hit her granddaughter instead. She said in a fit of laughter and tears, "How old are you? If you talk about being a woman and not being a woman, outsiders should say you have no rules." Jian smiled and was about to act coquettishly when the coachman in front suddenly shouted, "Be careful." The carriage stopped suddenly. Jian was unprepared for a moment and hit the siding. The potato chips in his hand were scattered all over Mrs. Lee's head like a goddess scattering flowers. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 863. Chapter 863 Deliberate Collision. Jian and Ji hurriedly picked the potato chips off the top of Grandma's hair. Jiyan was annoyed, opened the car window and asked, "What happened?" Muju held a half-grown boy who looked like a boy in his hand and shouted back, "A few people were standing at the intersection, and this boy suddenly rushed out and stopped the carriage, almost trampling on him." Without waiting for the good news to be asked, a man wearing a satin robe came over with 7 or 8 slaves and some boxes. The man was in his 30s, wearing an azure-colored cloak, and his expression was a bit arrogant. He stepped forward and saluted with a flattering smile, "Excuse me, are you Princess Kangal? I am polite to you." Jiyan raised her eyebrows, rubbed her painful arm, and asked coldly, without returning the greeting, "What's the matter with you?" The middle-aged man probably did not expect that the good news would be so direct, so he hesitated and said, "Princess, I have come a long way, can you come to your house to ask for a cup of tea?" It just so happened that Xiaoguan's servant was rude and almost startled the princess's driver. This also gave Xiaoguan a chance to apologize. As he spoke, he turned his body sideways and asked Jiyan to look at the boxes. Unfortunately, Jiyan didn't look at the box at all, but instead glanced at the boy who caused the trouble. The boy didn't look frightened. It was obvious that he had rushed out deliberately just to block her way and create an opportunity for his master. You must know that the carriage is not the car in the previous life. It stops as soon as the brake is applied. This is done well by the veteran driver, and Muju is also very skilled. Otherwise, if the horses are so frightened that they run wildly and they sit in the car, they will be seriously injured even if they do not die. This is just for your own selfishness and not taking the lives of others seriously. Who gave you the courage and face to instruct the servants to rush into the carriage, deliberately murder the princess, and even want to drink tea from our house? Jiyan scolded him without any politeness. Of course the middle-aged official didn't want to admit it, and he still wanted to defend himself. Muju had already moved his hands, and he didn't know where he had moved the boy. The boy immediately screamed in pain. After a few breaths, he couldn't bear it any longer, and the boy shouted indiscriminately, "It's our master, let me stop the carriage. Woo, spare me, I didn't mean it." The middle-aged official immediately changed his expression and glared at the young man. Muju let go of his hand, and the boy was piled on the ground like mud. Jiyan did not look at the middle-aged official and directly ordered, "Come here, send this boy and this tea man to Jingzayan to ask questions about deliberately ramming the carriage and murdering the princess and Mrs. Yupanjioming. What is the crime? If Jingzayan doesn't know, I don't mind going into the palace and asking the emperor." The middle-aged official turned pale, obviously frightened, and immediately said anxiously, "Princess, I don't mean you any harm. I just want to visit your house." But Jiyan was impatient to keep messing with him, so he waved his hands to several veterans who came over. The veteran was about to pull the middle-aged official and leave. Perhaps the middle-aged official had never been treated like this before. He was so annoyed that he started to curse. As a result, Ji was already lying by the car window, looking at him with a half-smile. "Our new capital is really lively. I just came out of Jingzhaoyin prison and watched a big show." Jingzhaoyin Dalao? The middle-aged official was not stupid enough. He immediately guessed Ji's identity and immediately shrank his neck, not daring to say another word. "This is Li Jiyi, the Li Jiyi who kicked Uncle Guo to death. Li Jiyi, whose evil reputation spread throughout Xindu." The middle-aged official kept his mouth shut, for fear of angering this man and putting his life at risk. Li Jiyi snorted coldly and closed the window. Muju jumped on the shaft, and the carriage continued forward, passing the second village checkpoint, and headed home all the way. In the carriage behind were Li Zhensheng, Li Laoer and Li Laosi. They originally wanted to come forward, but when they heard the good news and Ji came forward, they pretended to be mute. Sure enough, with a few words, the brother and sister made the blockers retreat and even sent them to Jingzhaoyin Yamen. Li Laoer couldn't help but sigh, "The children have really grown up and can stand on their own." Li Laosi nodded, thought for a while and added, "Second brother, I can't feel sorry for Ji this time. I'm afraid he won't be promoted again in a short time." "Family, what are you talking about? As a nephew, he should give way to his uncle. Besides, he is still young, and working hard for a few more years is also training." Li Lao patted his younger brother shoulders, not wanting him to blame himself. Li Zhensheng also nodded, "Anyone in the family who gets promoted is the glory of our Li family." Li Laozi didn't say any more. He has made up his mind that after completely regaining Jiangbei next year, he will retire and go home. "Come and be filial to me for a few years. The eldest brother is away from home all the time, and the third brother is not good at managing affairs. The second brother is alone in Zindu, so he is definitely not able to do what he wants. He comes back to lend a hand, and he can also protect the home more airtight." Li Lao directly changed the subject and said, "That person just now should be here to plead for mercy and act as a lobbyist." "Second brother, are you talking about those people under investigation?" Li Laozi sneered. "How do they have the nerve to come to the door? Do they really think that our Li family has no temper?" "Yes, when they submitted a memorial to ask the emperor to kill Ji Yi as soon as possible, why didn't they think of today?" Li Zhensheng leaned against the wall of the car and sneered, "It's useless for anyone to intercede. These people are just remembering. If you don't remember to eat, we have to knock a few times from time to establish our authority." While the brothers were talking, the carriage entered the new village. "The village chief, Uncle Zhao, and others have been waiting here for a long time. Maybe it's going to snow, it's not that cold, but there's no sun either." Several old men lit a bonfire and talked while warming themselves. 3 or 5 naughty boys who were not old enough to go to school came over and threw a few sweet potatoes and a handful of chestnuts into the fire. As a result, the sweet potatoes were burnt black and the chestnuts crackled and exploded from time to time, causing the naughty boys to jump. The village chief, Uncle Zhao, and others couldn't stop laughing. At the time of excitement, the Li family came back. "Have you brought Jie Yi back?" the village chief rushed over and asked loudly. Ji Yi opened the door, jumped down neatly, and said with a smile, "Grandpa village chief, Grandpa Zhao, Grandpa Wei, I'm back." "Oh, brat, you're back, finally, we don't have to worry about anything anymore." The village chief patted Ji Yi's back hard with his big hand. "He and Lao Zhao are all retired wounded soldiers, so they can't help but act and speak in a rough manner. Compared to school children like Ji Aran and Li Gear, they prefer sturdy naughty boys like Ji Yi, 11 Gear and N Gear. Especially Ji Yi, he often learns skills from them on his way out. He is considered half of their apprentice." "Good boy, just come back." Uncle Zhao and others also stepped forward, smiling happily. Mrs. Li was very happy to take her grandson back and said, "Let's eat at home for lunch. There's no time to make any big dishes. It's just a bit of fun. Don't dislike it, brothers." The old lady was joking, "What does my family dislike? This kid Ji Yi is back, even if we eat pickles, they taste better than meat." The village chief waved his pipe pot and shouted to a naughty boy, "Go to my house and ask your grandmother Wu to bring a piece of bacon to add to the lunch." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 864. Chapter 864. If you are willing to gamble, you must admit defeat. Aunt Wu grew up in the south and was good at smoking bacon. Occasionally when she was in good health, she would lay out a few pieces and hang them on the beams in the kitchen. Everyone is a native of the north, so they are not used to the taste, but it is good to taste something new. While talking and laughing like this, everyone entered the courtyard. Wan'er, Wenjuan, and Mrs. Wen all led the children out to welcome them. Ji Yi was originally the king of children, and soon he became familiar with the stars and the crescent moon. Then, he put them on his shoulders, carrying one on his back, and ran all over the yard, occasionally jumping over the wall, making the two children scream and laugh. After entering the house, the two children became Ji's little followers. They would follow Ji wherever he went. As for Yuan, she spit out bubbles of saliva and danced in protest while lying in her mother's arms. But his uncle Ji didn't even dare to hug him, let alone take him to the sky and the earth. Because a child of a few months old seems to have no bones, and it feels like it can be injured with just a little force. Mrs. Lee said it politely. In fact, before everyone went out, the kitchen started preparing lunch. At this moment, the chicken, fish, meat, and eggs are served on the table, fried, and they are all delicious and delicious. Ji likes to eat big meat, such as sauced backbone, grilled lamb chops, cumin mutton, etc., everything is available. Ji is also not polite, and he eats to his heart's content. Finally, he followed his brothers to the hot spring pool of the marquee mansion, washed himself thoroughly, put on the coat and trousers made by his grandma, then lay down on the big kong, and soon fell asleep snoring loudly. Although Lao Huang helped with night watch in the cell, he still didn't dare to sleep well. After all, it was someone else's territory, the jailer who was being polite to him. Maybe he was thinking about him. Now that he is finally home, he no longer has to worry and can have a good sleep. Some families are happy and some are sad. Some people are happy, while others are naturally depressed. The middle-aged official from before was escorted to Jingzayin by the veterans. Master Fuyan fined the person some money as a token and let him go. Jingzayin did not have the right to punish Beijing officials. The princess ordered the person to be sent, but she did not intend to do anything to the person, but just gave him a lesson. This middle-aged official escaped, but felt humiliated. After leaving Jingzhaoyin Yamen, we went straight to a courtyard in the south of the city. After he left, the owner of the courtyard went straight to the Wang family. In the study room of the Wang family, Mr. Wang frowned, put down his tea bowl, and blamed his eldest brother. I said at the beginning that this wouldn't happen, but if you didn't listen, you would definitely incite those people to submit a memorial. It's okay now, the Li boy is fine, but he set our house on fire. Wang Zekin was also irritable, and retorted with a dark face, I originally thought that when Li Laosi returned from the northern expedition, Li Ji would also come back to offer prisoners and ask for merit. If someone spread a few gossips, he could instigate the emperor to be afraid of the Li family. Who would have thought that Li Ji would be so bold as to kick Wu Yan to death? If Wu Yan were still Qiajuyi, Li Ji would not be able to escape the punishment no matter what. But it happened that the Wu family was imprisoned by the emperor, and Wu Yan became a fugitive. At that time, you should have stopped. Why are you still asking for a memorial? Wang Lao raised his hand and poured himself a cup of tea. He drank it in one gulp, but it still couldn't quench the anger in his heart. Wang Zekin stood up and walked around the ground, saying, I thought about taking advantage of the victory to pursue it, but I never thought that the emperor had such trust in the Li family that he actually gave the memorial to the Li family. As he spoke, he became impatient. He turned around and asked, It's useless to talk about this now. Just tell me, is there any good way to shut up these families? Wang Lao snorted coldly and said after a long silence, those people may not be able to keep their official positions, but it's because they themselves are dirty and let others take advantage of them. Let's work on our family, don't let them impose too heavy a sentence, and give some extra gold and silver as compensation, it should be enough. Wang Zekin's eyes twitched with distress, the third child has always been in charge of the family's general affairs. Ever since Lao San went crazy, the industry's income has been getting worse year by year. Now, if I want to take out a large sum of gold and silver, I'm afraid it will affect my family. Thinking about the past, how did the Wang family end up in such a state of decline? As night fell, the heavy snow in the sky finally fell. Add another layer of thick clothes to the mountain and forest village in winter. A carriage followed by 100 guards came out of the city. Horse hooves and wheels trampled the fluffy new snow all the way to the new village. As soon as the people in the carriage got out of the carriage, a sharp-eyed boy immediately announced inside loudly. "The Marquis is back, Mr. Wen is back." Just as Mrs. Lee came out of the kitchen, she happily went out and greeted the two of them. "Go home first, wash up, change into comfortable clothes, and then come over for dinner. Let's eat dumplings tonight." The Marquis and Mr. Wen both saluted with smiles. By the time they came back, a table had been set up in the main room. The steaming dumplings look like fat little pigs, lying lazily on the plate, which is particularly tempting. The Lee family, young and old, are all here, including Daong, Huanayang and Mrs. Wen holding Yu Yaer. When Yu Yaer saw her father, she reached out for a hug. Mr. Wen quickly stepped forward, hugged his precious daughter, and said to Mrs. Wen, "I heard that you will come over this afternoon to help make dumplings." "Yes, I have nothing to do at home. Come and help me. My aunt specially prepared 3 fresh stuffing for you, as well as the pork and green onion stuffing that Mr. Marquis likes." Mrs. Wen rolled up her sleeves for her husband with a smile. On the other side, Ji Yin had already invited the Marquis to sit down, and said with a smile, "Father, I made all the dumplings with ruffles on the plate." Mr. Ho rubbed her hair and said, "Okay, my adoptive father will eat some more later." Old Mrs. Lee called everyone to take their seats. "Hurry up and sit down and eat the dumplings. It will get cold in a while. We are all family members. Do you want me, an old lady, to pass you chopsticks?" Everyone sat down with a smile. As usual, the men were in the main room, and the women and children were in the east room. Of course, Ji Yin is an exception. The seat between the Marquis and her father is her special seat. The Lee family's life today is like heaven and earth compared to before. However, the young and old girls of the Lee family are still used to doing some work. For example, dumplings for reunions like this must be made by themselves. This afternoon, the maids and women took care of the children. The old lady took Tao Hongying, Zhao Yuru, Wan'er, Wenjuan, plus Mrs. Wen and Huanayang to do everything from chopping stuffing to making dumplings. While talking and laughing, the delicious dumplings made have a happy taste. Ji Yin ate all kinds of dumplings with various fillings, and she had 7 or 8 of them. Her little face was filled with smiles. For Northerners, there is nothing that a meal of dumplings cannot solve. If there is, then 2 meals. Eating steaming dumplings with close family members in front of you is definitely the most heartwarming moment. Old Mrs. Lee's stomach was already 80% full when she saw her children and grandchildren eating delicious food. She took the plate and kept adding dumplings to everyone, saying with a smile, "It's rare for our family to have all these together, it's more lively than during the Chinese New Year. It would be great if Brother 11 and Brother N were also at home." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 865. Chapter 865. This girl is a miserable person. Everyone stopped with their chopsticks and watched the old lady's face carefully, fearing that she would be sad. In the end, the old lady said it so casually that she didn't even react. Ji Yi quickly took over the conversation and said, "Grandma, maybe there will be more people in the family next year. I have something to say." "Have something to say?" Not only the old lady, but also everyone raised their heads curiously. Tao Hongying asked, "Lu Yang came back earlier and said he wanted to marry a wife. Don't you have a girl you like?" Mrs. Lee was very excited after hearing this. She quickly sat down next to her grandson and urged, "Tell Grandma who girl she is from. Is she good looking? Is she even haircut?" Ji Yi felt uncomfortable being stared at by everyone. He blushed and coughed twice. "Grandma, I haven't even finished my horoscope yet, but I just want to tell you first. If my family doesn't agree, I will." "Agree? How could I disagree? Orange Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying shouted almost in unison. Everyone laughed when they heard this. Mrs. Wen quickly advised, Auntie, let's listen to Ji Yi slowly. This is a lifelong event, and it would be good for Ji Yi to be more cautious. Li Laozi also patted his nephew on the shoulder and said with a smile, Yes, tell me quickly, my fourth uncle can help you with advice. Ji Yi thought for a while and said, Actually, this matter is a bit complicated. This girl's name is Huanhu, and her father is a county captain near Quanzhou. He is very capable and brave. Previously, because of protecting the fishermen, the county lieutenant had an enmity with a group of Japanese pirates half a year ago. The Japanese pirates came to the door at night and killed the whole family. Only the Coral girl survived because she was not at home. The Coral girl disappeared after mourning her family. Many people speculated that she committed suicide. However, when I led the troops to sea, I met this Coral girl. She didn't know how she deceived the Japanese pirates, got on the boat, and put medicine in the Japanese pirates' drinking water. Most of the Japanese pirates died, but the 7 or 8 missing ones also forced the Coral girl to a desperate situation. At the critical moment, I happened to lead a patrol and encountered her, so I killed the Japanese pirate and rescued her. But I wasn't paying attention for a moment and didn't see the knife swung by the Japanese pirates. It was the Coral girl who blocked my back and hurt my back. We fell into the sea together, and Coral girl got her clothes wet. Ji Yi said it very happily before, but later he hesitated. But no one is stupid, how could they not understand the meaning behind this? For a long time, no one spoke in the room, and I even forgot to eat the dumplings. In the end, it was Mrs. Li who spoke first. Ji Yi, to put it simply, this girl's family was ruined and she was seeking revenge alone. You saved her, and she saved you again, right? Just as Ji Yi was about to nod, Tao Hongying added, and this girl fell into the water with you in full view of everyone and lost her reputation, right? Ji Yi's face turned even redder. He nodded and waved his hands, leaving everyone confused. Hearing the good news, he was anxious. He grabbed his brother and asked, Brother, just tell me, where is this girl now? Do you like her? She is in the wounded barracks in our army. She was originally recovering from injuries, but there were not enough manpower, so she came to help. Ji Yi scratched the back of his head and continued, I haven't even said a few words to her, how do I know if I like her or not? However, this girl is not one of those coy official ladies. If she gets married, she won't bother me all day long. The old and young girls in the room felt helpless when they heard the good news, and they even wanted to give their brother a look. The ignorant straight man. In the end, it was Mrs. Li who told Ji Yi, getting married is not a child's play, and you cannot just marry someone back casually. If you like it, nothing will matter to your family, but if you don't like it, you will harm the daughter. You will have to stay at home for a while. Let me think about it carefully. It is best to find a way to get the best of both worlds. This girl is a hard-working person, so she should not treat others badly. Tao Hongying and others nodded. As women, they understand the plight of women better. Mom, don't worry too much. The worst case scenario is that we bring the girl to Zindu, find a foster daughter in our family, and then find her a good in-law, Tao Hongying suggested. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this, and Mrs. Li even smiled and praised her daughter-in-law. Hongying has made a lot of progress by walking around more. This is a great idea. Tao Hongying blushed at the praise and quickly said, my mother taught me better. Soon, everyone picked up their chopsticks again and chatted while eating. Li Lao asked for 2 jugs of wine and shared them with everyone. Brother Li and Brother Cat both joined in the fun and drank half the glass with a smile. In this way, after eating the dumplings, everyone will be tipsy, but they won't get drunk and have a headache. After dinner, the women wanted to put the children to bed and clean up the mess, so they sent the men to chat next door. So the men all moved to the Marquis's study. The Jiaran brothers took Ji away and went back to the room. They didn't know if they wanted to be naughty together or if they wanted to ask Ji whether his peach blossom was pretty. Ji prepared some snacks and fruits for Zhengqi and asked him to bring them in to add food to his brothers. Then he carried the honey to the next door. Honey is brewed by bees after the fruit trees in the space bloom. It tastes much better than ordinary honey. Put 3 spoons in a pot of warm water, stir it, and the sweet aroma will fill the room. The Marquis and others all took a cup and drank it in one gulp, and couldn't help but laugh. Our Fu Niu is like a little fairy, she's getting smarter and more skillful. Li Lao sighed with a smile. If your brothers are half as sensible as you, my second uncle's hair won't turn completely white. Yes, the 4th child is still blessed. We are all destined to break our legs because of our sons. Li Zhensheng thought of his 2 sons and felt disgusted. After dinner, my son ran to play. Only my niece remembered to make them honey water. Li Lao-san also sighed when he thought of Jia 11 outside. Li Lao-si smiled proudly, stretched out his empty cup and asked his daughter to fill it up again, and said, 3 brothers, forget it, but if the eldest brother and the second brother marry a sister-in-law, they can still have a daughter. Li Zhensheng and Li Lao quickly waved their hands, both with expressions of resistance on their faces. Li Zhensheng said, it's good for us like this. Our mother also has Yuru and Hongying to take care of her, and there is no shortage of daughters-in-law. What if we have bad judgment and find a troublemaker to come back? My mother will get angry and the family will be uneasy. Li Lao also nodded and echoed, and in this current situation, our family is at the forefront. If we catch this and plan some trouble, the gains will outweigh the losses. The Marquis thought for a while and said, don't ignore the family relationship. From now on, our family will have to rely on him to take root in Quanzhou. If his wife cannot be a help, at least she cannot be a hindrance. Should I ask my aunt and the others to go to Quanzhou to relax and help Ji Zhanjun? Everyone was stunned when they heard this and didn't say anything for a long time. What the Marquis said must make sense, and the old lady doesn't have to be in charge at home now. It's okay to take advantage of the old lady's good health and her ability to go out and see different local customs and meet her future granddaughter-in-law. But at this time, Mr. Ho suddenly brought it up. Are there other considerations? The third update is here, little fairies from the Huahua family. It's the last 2 days. If you still have must-read tickets in your hands, give them to Huahua, and beg for cuteness. If you give me a 5-star review or if it looks good, I will love you even more. Come on, code, refill. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 866. Chapter 866. The sun and the moon strive for glory. Why did the Marquis say that? Is it because something is going to happen that you send the elderly and children away? Li Zhensheng was the first to ask a few questions, and finally said with a frown, over there in Quanzhou, I have bought a yard and property, and it is no problem to accommodate my family, but it is not easy for the elderly and children to travel thousands of miles away. Li Lao also said, it stands to reason that the Wu family has fallen, and the Wang family is like a tortoise that dares not take the lead again. There are also the 6 officials under investigation who will serve as warnings. No one should dare to attack our family again. House Ho waved his hand, indicating that they should not think too much. He raised his hand and took a sip of the honey water and said, Jiaran and Fu Niu asked me to investigate Gilai earlier, but before my men could find anything, I was warned. When you leave this door today, forget about this matter and just pretend that nothing happened. As long as you know that Gilai is just a small steward of our family, he will not harm our family and does not require extra care from our family. Coolly. Except for Li Lao, the others were not familiar with this name, so they couldn't help but look confused. Li Lao explained to them in a low voice, Gu Li was originally Mr. Jiang's bookboy in the school, but now he is the chief steward of Bianjian. Jian blinked his big eyes twice, very curious about Gu Li's identity. But the only one who can warn the adoptive father and prevent him from investigating is the emperor's uncle. Having guessed a certain possibility, her heart suddenly rose. She quickly said, Gu Li has helped me take care of Bianjian for a long time. He is very reliable and hard-working, and he doesn't talk much. What you give is rewarded, so I didn't treat him badly in terms of money. The Marquis glanced at Jian, with a flash of pride in his eyes. This girl is smart, and she is obedient and listens to others' voices. He can guess clearly without waiting for others to say anything. He couldn't help but tell him, Fu Niuer, remember to tell your elder brother. Don't worry, foster father, I understand the importance. Jian quickly nodded in agreement. Although Li Zhensheng and others were full of doubts, the Marquis looked serious, so they didn't ask any more questions. The Marquis will not harm the family. Since he said that they don't need to worry about it, he should pretend that he doesn't know, so he doesn't know. Even though Gu Li's life experience was a little weird, his family never treated him badly and took him in for so many years. Even if he is not grateful, he will not become enemies. Mr. Wen was thoughtful and silent for a while, then asked softly, is this related to the fact that the Marquis wants to send the women away? The Marquis nodded and pointed at the sky, that's not all. The sun and the moon are competing for their glory, and sooner or later the new capital will be in chaos. And, judging from the current situation, I'm afraid it will start soon. Our family is close to the emperor, and we have eliminated many of the other party's minions, so we have been hated by the other party for a long time. Maybe the other party will do it himself next time. That one has been very happy these 2 years, but we must not underestimate him. We are in the court and in the army, and there is nothing he can do, but it is easy to cause trouble for the female relatives. The best way is to send the female relatives away to avoid the limelight. Next year the northern expedition will end and the country will be unified. No matter how unwilling you are, you will not be able to compete with the emperor. Everyone was very excited after hearing this, and their expressions were solemn. Previously, I only pursued the Wu family and let go of the Wang family, because I just didn't want to fight with that person directly. But as Mr. Ho said, there is no way to avoid this matter. Sooner or later there will be a war. Li Lao sighed, if you want to send away the old people and children, it is indeed a good excuse to show your wife to your family. Li Lao Si also followed up and said, Mom is getting older, Xin Yuan, and the others are still young, so we have to make more preparations. In this way, our family will let the news out first. After 10.5 months, the eldest brother will lead the fleet south. It should be no problem to add an extra passenger ship, bring more things with you, and walk more slowly. Li Zhensheng nodded, you don't need to worry about this. Just convince my mother, I'll be there on the way. When the word Lao Niang was mentioned, everyone felt a little worried. They subconsciously looked at Jiyan, hoping that Jiyan would be the lobbyist. Jiyan was silent for such a long time, she had already made up her mind. At this moment, she waved her hand and said, Uncle, don't look at me. I won't go to Quanzhou. I want to stay and look after the house. No. Everyone's expressions changed and they objected in unison. If anyone doesn't leave, you have to leave too. Li Laosi pulled his daughter and scolded her a few times, the man in the palace wants to cause trouble for our family. I'm afraid he will be the first to touch you. You must go to Quanzhou. Li Zhensheng also said, yes, Fu Niuer is obedient and goes to Quanzhou with uncle. Uncle will take you to go fishing and watch the sunrise. You can also go to the sea and pick up crabs and shrimps as you like. Even Li Laosan tried to persuade her, Fu Niuer, be obedient. My third uncle is here to take care of things at home. You, a little kid, don't bother. Go to the south for a year, Don't forget to bring back some good things for Uncle San. These three brothers used both soft and hard tactics, and they did not agree with the good news to stay under any circumstances. The Marquis was still silent when he saw the good news, so he said, "Fu Niuer, tell me the reason why you want to stay." Jiyan immediately smiled and straightened his back. "First of all, my adoptive father and father have fought countless times for the northern expedition and to regain the mountains and rivers. Next year will be the most critical year. If I stay, I can brew more medicine, and I can enter the palace at any time, so that the emperor will not forget his adoptive father and the Northern Expeditionary Army, or be instigated by villains and hold back the Northern Expeditionary Army. Second, I am Princess Kangal, Broken Gold Beach is my fief, and I cannot leave at will." Li Laosi listened at first and wanted to refute, but at the end he became discouraged. Tianwu law does stipulate that those who have been granted a title are not allowed to leave the fief without any reason. At least they must submit a memorial to the emperor for approval. Li Laoer also smiled bitterly. "I forgot about this." Jiyan takes advantage of the victory and throws out the last big reason. "Previously, I burned 2 granaries of the Wu family and got a lot of grain, which I secretly put away. This is the escape route I prepared for my father and adoptive father, the most reliable escape route. In case the imperial court is unable to catch it, the Northern Expeditionary Army will not be alone, at least I will be there." These words were a bit arrogant, but when everyone thought of Jiyan's miraculous ability, they all knew that this girl was not telling lies. Master Ho felt very complicated in his heart when he heard that the little girl was doing everything for him and the Northern Expedition Army. He raised his hand to rub her soft hair and said with emotion, "Fu Niu has really grown up." Of course, Jiyan hugged her adoptive father's arm with a smile and begged, "Father, please don't worry and let me stay. I have a way to protect myself even if I am in a desperate situation. I will not be in danger of my life, let alone suffer. On the contrary, my grandma and mother must go to Quanzhou. If they stay, I can't protect them if something happens." These words were not said in a small tone, and they made everyone feel helpless and funny. This has been discussed for a long time. Finally, everyone made the decision. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 867. Chapter 867, Etiquette is light but caring is important. Jiyan, the landowner, stayed. Jiaran and brother Li have to take the exam next spring and must stay. Jie Huan supports the restaurant business, so he must stay. Li Laosan has to stay in charge of the academy cafeteria. The rest of the old, weak, women and children were all taken care of by Li Zhensheng, and they went south to Quanzhou to live for a year. Including Mrs. Wen, Yu Yaer, Huanayang, and their 2 children. Even sister-in-law Lu had to go with her for Lu Yang's marriage. That night, both young and old in the Li family went to bed very late. The Li Zhensheng brothers certainly wanted to make arrangements for their trip south. Jiaran and Ji, who had not seen each other for many years, lay on a big kong and talked endlessly. Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and Zhao Yuru were doing needlework and discussing how to make more delicious food for Ji. Jiyan is also busy making lists. Since birth, she has almost never been separated from her grandmother. This time not only grandma, but also my mother, aunt, and sisters-in-law are going on a long trip together. She is naturally worried about food, clothing, housing, and transportation, and wishes she could take care of everything. On the second day, everyone in the Li family got up late. After breakfast, it was already 3 o'clock in the morning. Jiaran and Ji took brother Li and brother Mao, dressed up, said goodbye to their families and headed into the city. Last night, Lu Zong's post was sent over, inviting them to have a gathering at his house. Ji did not suffer at all in prison, but received a lot of conveniences from the prison boss. And the prison boss is Lu Zong's connection. No matter what, the Li family must go and thank him. So, Jiren told his family last night. Today I not only brought Ji with me to the Lu family, but also brought generous gifts. In addition to the 4 treasures of the study and other commonly used items, there is also a bearskin cloak that the old lady, Tao Hongying, and Zhao Yuru sewed for Lu Zong. These things may not be very good, but they all reveal the Li family's intentions. A while ago, Jiyan was cooped up at home with nothing to do, and couldn't bear to see her brothers carrying clumsy bamboo boxes when they went out to pick up books. So, she took her maids and nuns to make a lot of cowhide men's bags. Elegant style, large capacity, rainproof, and dustproof, and can be carried cross-body. All the young and old men in the family, from Li Zhensheng to Mr. Wen, as well as the Jiren brothers, all have a role to play. Everyone really liked it after they got it. Especially Mr. Wen, he is a person who is accustomed to never leaving his books. Occasionally, he takes the Yamen files home and continues to read them. In rainy and snowy weather, he would take off his cloak and wrap up the book box for fear that the books would get wet. Now that I have this square leather bag, I don't have to be so embarrassed anymore. Brother Jiren also couldn't put it down. Jiren and Brother Li naturally put books, and Brother Cat put his favorite food and pens and paper for easy recording. Of course, small things such as money do not need to be stuffed in the purse, which is so cumbersome to hang around the waist. Now a cowhide bag is all done. Today, Jiyan heard that there were Jiasu, Guo Wenhao, Zhaiman, and Jiuji at the party. The family gave gifts to Lu Zong, but it was not easy for them to watch. So, she took out the few remaining bags and asked her brothers to take them with them. Everyone had a share and it was a lively event. Logically speaking, women's needlework cannot be given away to outsiders. But she is only 10 years old, so she is not a big girl. Moreover, Guo Wenhao, Zhaiman, Xiuji and others have known each other since childhood, and they are well connected, so there is no need to be too taboo. Lu Zong and others were envious of the Jiren brothers who originally carried such cowhide bags, but they couldn't ask for them. Now, they suddenly got their wish, and they were naturally very happy. Especially Guo Wenhao, he put all his small things in it at that time, and he was reluctant to let the boy help carry it. Lu Zong was born into a family of military commanders, and he heard that Ji Yi was born with supernatural powers, so he naturally gave it a try. As expected, the two quickly became familiar with each other without fighting. After playing for a day, it seemed as if they had known each other for a long time. When the sun set in the west and everyone separated, they made an appointment to go to a blacksmith shop run by a veteran of the Lu family tomorrow to look at weapons. Men are naturally fond of martial arts, so how can anyone not be interested in weapons? So, after sleeping one night, the Li brothers went out again. For 3 to 5 days in a row, the boys went crazy and couldn't catch the shadow at all. Mrs. Li was happy for her grandchildren to get together and get close to each other, but she still laughed and scolded them, "You can't catch these brats if you let them out." Tao Hongying happened to be going into the city, so she smiled and said, "Mom, will you go out for a walk with me to relax?" Mrs. Li quickly waved her hand, "I'm not going, you go quickly. When you come back, remember to go to the south of the city to buy some roast chicken. Ji Yi likes to eat it." "I got it, mother." Tao Hongying responded with a smile, picked up the gold-woven cloak, held Granny Lin's hand, and got into the carriage. When Mrs. Liu's family had trouble, she helped out. Today, Mrs. Liu held a small tea party, inviting her, Mrs. Wen, and several other women she was friends with to have snacks and chat together. Mrs. Wen brought Yu Ye over yesterday, so she should go back to her parents' house to stay for one night. So, at this moment, Tao Hongying was on her way alone. Soon we arrived at Liu's house, where everyone was drinking tea and laughing. They are all acquaintances who know each other well and have similar temperaments, and they don't have too many worries about what they say. One of the women asked Tao Hongying, I heard that the young general in your second room has taken a fancy to the girl from Quanzhou. Tao Hongying was stunned when she heard this. Only family members know about this. When did it become known? She was confused in her heart, but she replied with a smile, "It's not that I'm fancy, it's just a chance encounter. After all, our home is here, too far away from Quanzhou." The woman nodded and said with a smile, "I guess so too. When looking for a wife, you need to find someone who is well matched, and preferably someone from the local area. Otherwise, eating, drinking, and dressing will be different every day, which is also annoying." A good match. Tao Hongying's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the details of the girl who is related to Ji Yi are known to everyone? She said tentatively, "My mother-in-law has the final say in the marriage of our children, and it's also the case at home these days, alas." She sighed and looked helpless. As expected, the lady immediately advised, "Actually, it is right for the old lady to have concerns. I heard that the girl is an orphan. How much luck does such a child lack in life? The second wife of your family has a title. It is too low to find such a daughter-in-law." Tao Hongying responded casually and then winked at Mrs. Liu. Mrs. Liu immediately changed her subject and brought up the New Year's rituals and trivial matters. Tao Hongying had something on her mind and had lunch at Liu's house, then hurried home with Mrs. Wen and her daughter. Mrs. Li was about to take a nap. When her daughter-in-law came back, she asked, "Why didn't you go shopping in the city? Also, have you bought some roast chicken?" Tao Hongying couldn't care less about roasting chicken. She dragged her mother-in-law into the house and whispered, "Mom, there should be a spy in our family or in our village, who is stealing everything and telling the truth about the family." Mrs. Li was startled, turned around to look at Mrs. Wen who followed, and asked, "What did you hear in the city?" Tao Hongying and Mrs. Wen quickly repeated what the lady said. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 868. Chapter 868, Facing the Difficulties. Old Mrs. Li frowned, thought for a while and comforted them, "Don't make any noise for now, everyone in our family has clean backgrounds and clear origins. The people in the village even risked their lives to escape here with us. Our family is doing well and everyone is doing well. If something bad happens to our family, it will be bad for everyone, so it may not be as you guessed. You know, the Highland army has been in Zindu for a few days. Maybe someone knows Jia Yi and is familiar with his affairs in the south, and accidentally let it slip." These words reminded Tao Hongying and Mrs. Wen, and they both breathed a sigh of relief. "I have to say, is still spicier. The old lady is old, and her actions are prudent and thoughtful. Then let's wait until Ji Yi comes back in the evening and we'll ask." Tao Hongying was relieved, but she remembered that she had not bought roast chicken for her nephew, so she called the boy to catch 2 ducks and roasted them directly. In the evening, she ate roast duck burritos as a substitute for roast chicken. When it got dark, Ji and other brothers came back from outside with smiles. They smelled the fragrance in the yard and stepped a little faster. "Fourth aunt, do you want to eat roast duck tonight?" Ji asked with a smile, prompting Tao Hongying to reply with a smile, "Yes, your grandma asked me to buy roast chicken to satisfy your craving. I forgot about it for a moment, so I quickly roasted the duck. You can just take a bite and eat roast chicken tomorrow." Ji quickly waved his hand, "The duck roasted by the fourth aunt is 10,000 times more delicious than the roast chicken outside. Who would eat roast chicken when there is roast duck?" Tao Hongying was coaxed from ear to ear, and her subordinates worked more efficiently. After a while, Li Zhensheng and others also came back. Only Mr. Ho and Li Laosi returned to the dock military camp. But the whole family together consists of 20 people, so it is quite lively to eat together. Ji Yi made one of the 2 roast ducks himself and was satisfied with the meal. After the dining table was removed, everyone gathered together to talk. Mrs. Li asked about the rumors outside. When Li Lao saw his eldest brother drinking tea and his third brother looking at the sky, he knew that this arduous task had fallen on him. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and said, "Mom, next year is a critical year for the northern expedition. Some people who are against the emperor, or people who do not want the northern expedition to succeed, may attack our family. We have discussed with the Marquis and want you to take your family to Quanzhou to live for a while, and at the same time, you can check the family's rights and make arrangements for the marriage. Here in Xindu, there is no need to worry about the young and old at home. We are fighting with each other, so we are not afraid." Going to Quanzhou? Mrs. Li and others were stunned when they heard this, but after thinking about it, they thought it was a good thing. Li Zhensheng bought a courtyard, a shop, and other properties in Quanzhou, and everyone knew about it. Furthermore, the boys often talked about the scenery at the seaside, which made everyone excited. Especially as a woman, there are not many opportunities to leave home. If you can go thousands of miles away to see something, you will really be able to show off for a lifetime. But now going south is equivalent to taking refuge, not just playing around. Therefore, Tao Hongying was the first to speak. "Mom, you can take your family to the south for a stroll. I will stay and guard the house." "No, fourth aunt, you and grandma should go south, I should stay and look after the house." Wanner quickly took over the topic. Wen Juan also joined in the fun. "I'm not leaving either. Brother Huan will definitely stay and take care of the restaurant. I will accompany him, so I can also take care of the house." "No, you all go to the south. I'll stay. There are people in the cafeteria of the left and right academy who can't live without people." Zhao Yuru also waved her hand. For a while, the room became noisy. In the end, Li Lao coughed twice and said, "Don't argue, everyone. This trip south is not for fun, but for the preservation and continuation of our Li family. We have already discussed it with Mr. Ho, Jiaran, and brother Li. The son is left to take exams, the family's wife is left to run the restaurant, the third child is guarding the college cafeteria, and the remaining mother, her two younger siblings, and her nephew and daughter-in-law are all going south. Mrs. Wen took Xing Xing with her, and Hui Niang and her two children also accompanied her. It's best to ask Lu Baiatu's family tomorrow. Lu Yang is getting married, so they probably have to go together too." Li Zhensheng and Li Laosan also nodded, and Li Zhensheng agreed, "This matter is settled, no one can say more, and it cannot be changed." Tao Hongying had a bad temper and got angry at the time. "No. Such a big yard must be guarded by someone. Besides, the Chinese New Year is about to take place, and Jiaran and brother Li are taking exams. How can we do it without anyone to take care of their food, drink, clothing, and supplies?" Li Lao and others all looked at the good news. They couldn't avoid the good news, so they had to face the difficulties. "Mom, I am the princess and cannot leave the fief without permission. So, I won't go to Quanzhou with you this time. I will take care of the chores at home, so don't worry." Tao Hongying's eyes suddenly widened, and she became even more worried. Li Lao was afraid that his sister-in-law would get angry, so he quickly withdrew on the pretext that he had documents to write. Before he left, he did not forget to say, "This matter must be kept secret, be careful of anyone interfering with it." Li Zhensheng and Li Laosan also rubbed oil on the soles of their feet, called their sons and nephews, and ran away with them. Leaving a room full of old and young women, big eyes and small eyes, all anxious and angry. Tao Hongying grabbed her daughter's hand and wanted to say something, but knew that she would not be able to persuade her. She was anxious and irritated, and her eyes were red. Jiyan was startled, hugged her mother quickly, and comforted her with a smile. "Mom, others don't know, don't you know? How smart your daughter is. The Wu family made so many calculations before and didn't do anything to me. Even if someone tries to do something in the future, they won't be able to hurt me. Don't worry. Fart. Tao Hongying saw her daughter's nonchalant look, so she was so angry that she cursed, pulled her daughter and patted her twice on the back. Your mother hasn't been burned out by the oil fumes, so you're deceiving me like a child. You know best who you are left to face. Is that something you, a little girl, can handle? Your foster father will always take a detour when he sees that man. When your adoptive father and your father go off to war, and your second and third uncles are men, once you are called into the palace, they will not be able to save you even if they want to. The more Tao Hongying talked, the more frightened she became. She held her daughter's hand tightly and did not dare to let go. She made up her mind. No, if you don't leave, my mother won't leave either. Where are you? Where is your mother? Mrs. Li also had a headache that seemed to be splitting. Occasionally when she couldn't sleep at night, she would consider whether to send her granddaughter to Quanzhou to escape. If there is one Wu family, there will be a second one. If you can fight with one person in your family, you may not be able to fight with the second one. It is safest to send all the children far away. The sky is high and the emperor is far away, so you don't have to face these intrigues. But she was reluctant to let go, so she did not discuss it with her sons. Who would have thought that now that she really wanted to go south, she would go and leave her granddaughter behind to face danger? No, it can't be done. You can't even tell the world about this. Mrs. Li waved her hand. Hongying, Yuru, you take the children and leave, I will stay and take charge. Milk, I won't leave. Yes, Milk, I want to keep it. I'm not leaving either. We can't leave the canteen. I'm still looking after the house. Zhao Yuru, Wan'er, and Wenjuan also started fighting. Needless to say, the room fell into a new round of quarrels. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 869. Chapter 869, The Inevitable Path of Growth. Jiyan couldn't bear it anymore, so he said, it takes a few days for the family to prepare before we can set off. Why don't we just rest tonight and discuss it tomorrow? After saying that, she hugged the arms of Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying. Tonight, Grandma and Mother will sleep with me. Mrs. Li guessed that this girl must have something to say, so she quickly agreed. Tao Hongying was also gnashing her teeth, thinking about how to force her daughter to go south, but of course she did not refuse. Soon, everyone dispersed with their hearts full of entanglements. After washing up and changing into soft pajamas, Jiyan sat between her grandma and mother with her hair loose, sometimes kissing her grandma and sometimes nuzzling her mother, as happily as a puppy wagging its tail. Grandma Li and Tao Hongying are so angry that they can't let it out. Old Mrs. Li chased away Aunt Chang and others, and said, go and have a rest. I didn't call you, so you don't have to come in to wait on me. Yes, old lady. Everyone responded and bowed their heads and retreated. Mammy Chang closed the door of the house herself, turned around and saw Xiaoqing, Grandma Lin and Shui Ling Shui Yun were there. She thought for a while and whispered, Sister Lin, go back and rest. Just let Xiaoqing stay here with me. After saying that, she turned to Shui Ling and Shui Yun, same for you, just leave one of them to wait for the princess command. The masters are so kind, and they are never willing to use us at night. It would be in vain if we all stay here. Everyone nodded in agreement, and soon, Granny Lin and Shui Ling went out. Shui Yun and Xiaoqing quickly spread bedding on the living kong, and finally asked Aunt Chang to sleep on the end of the kong while they slept on the end. Xiaoqing couldn't bear it any longer and quietly asked Aunt Chang, Mom, if the masters go south, should we all follow them? Mother Chang knew that she wanted to go out to broaden her horizons, So she laughed and said, "You are the maid next to the fourth madam. If the fourth madam goes out, how can she not take you with her?" Sure enough, Xiaoqing smiled and turned over excitedly on the bed. "I heard that pearls are very cheap in the south. If I have a chance, I will buy more. If I apply them every night, I will be as white as tofu." Shui Yun pursed her lips and smiled. Xiaoqing was good looking, but her skin was dark. No wonder she was obsessed with whitening. What Xiaoqing didn't know was that the sea breeze was the strongest. He might have used pearl powder on his face all year round, but a walk on the beach would have no effect at all. Mammy Chang was still going to speak when she heard two exclamations suddenly coming from the room, as if she was trying to suppress her throat, but it made people even more nervous. The three of them all straightened their necks, waiting for their master's call at any time. But not only were there no instructions from the room, but there was a heavy rumbling sound, like a mountain collapsing. Shui Yun jumped up and was about to get down to the ground, but Granny Chang pulled her arm and stopped her in a low voice. "Don't go, the master didn't call." But Shui Yun was a little anxious, fearing that his masters would be in danger. Fortunately, the room was probably worried about them, so after a while Mrs. Li said loudly, "Don't worry about it, go to sleep, it'll be fine." Shui Yun breathed a sigh of relief and quickly got into bed. Sure enough, there was no more strange movement in the house. On the big Kong in the back room, Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying held the little girl's hands on the left and right, but they still couldn't recover. Ji Yan felt a little guilty. Just now, in order to dispel the worries of her grandma and mother, she showed a little bit of ability. But looking at grandma and mother like this, aren't they frightened? She quickly said, "Grandma, mother, you should feel relieved now." I said, "No one can threaten my life. I don't hurt others, I am already very kind. You can go to Quanzhou, see the scenery, and help my third brother find a wife. You don't have to worry about me at all. Perhaps I will take a boat to pick you up before you miss me." Silly girl, Mrs. Li turned over and held her granddaughter in her arms. Even if she saw her granddaughter's amazing self-protection methods with her own eyes, how could she feel completely reassured? She sighed and said, "No matter how powerful you are still just a child. And a tiger can't stand up to a pack of wolves. We are all gone. Who can you ask to help you if you need help?" "Yes," Tao Hongying patted her daughter's back gently, feeling mixed in her heart. She was proud of her daughter, but also worried. She shook her head repeatedly. "How can I leave my child behind and go out to escape the disaster by myself?" Hearing the good news, I felt very warm and helpless, so I could only continue to reason. "Grandma, mother, you often say that my brothers should go out and explore when they grow up. They cannot hide at home all their lives. They must learn skills and become a strong support for their wives and children in the future, and also bring glory to our Li family. Similarly, me too. I am Princess Kangol, who was personally granted the title by the emperor's uncle, and I am still a girl. I always get married, take charge of the family, or face all the powerful people of the family alone. I can't always stay behind you and be a kid competing for favors. I should learn to be independent. Now is a good opportunity. I am only 10 years old. I go out to socialize and have no elders around me. If I say something wrong or do something wrong, no one will care about me. Besides, I have my second uncle and third uncle helping me, but it's really not possible. The chief steward of the home mansion is stretching his neck with anticipation, just waiting to wait for me to go out. Even among the female relatives, Mrs. Lu and Mrs. Jia can give me a few words of advice and won't see me suffer." Ji Yan breathed a sigh of relief, and still had some vague expectations about being able to take charge of his own affairs. "Anyway, Mom, there's no need for you to worry about me messing up the whole new world and worrying about me being bullied." Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying couldn't laugh or cry when they heard this, but they had to admit that what Ji Yan said made sense. If Ji Yan is an ordinary girl, pampered and hidden, she can just find a young man who knows everything about her and marry her when the time comes. But Jian is a princess, and there will always be times when she has to go out and face the wind, rain, and the world alone. They are getting older day by day, and no one can protect their children for a lifetime. Old Mrs. Li sighed, hugged her granddaughter tightly, and said no more. Tao Hongying also turned her head, tears quietly seeping into the pillow. Externally, Mr. Li is the boss of the Li family, but internally, Mr. Li has the final say. The good news convinced Grandma and even brought my mother along with her, so the others had no chance to make a comeback. So, when the bleak winter sunshine shone on the earth again, it became a fact that the Li family, the young woman, the old woman and the children went south. Mrs. Wen was also persuaded by Mr. Wen last night and packed her luggage and supplies with the Li family. Li Zhensheng came back after sending the news. He found a large passenger ship that could accommodate 110 people. Family members can bring more clothes and supplies to avoid inconveniencing the elderly and children on the road. Tao Hongying went to Huanyang's house to talk, and then went to Liu Yang's house. Sure enough, Liu's sister-in-law wanted to take her second son with her to Quanzhou to arrange Liu Yang's marriage. Logically speaking, Liu Biatu, the father, should go there. But the village only had support from the village chief and a few old men, so he was really worried and decided to stay. Fortunately, Mrs. Li led the team south this time. She has a royal title. It is decent enough to go to the woman to propose marriage on her behalf, and the woman should not be picky. Although the good news is not leaving, I am still busy keeping my feet from touching the ground. She wanted to prepare food for her family on the boat. Needless to say, snacks and fruits, mainly various medicines. Seasickness, diarrhea, wind chill, even detoxification. This busy period lasted for 7 or 8 days, and soon it was time to set off. The Li family is not arrogant, and the maids are also strict in their words. Except for the village chief and Liu Biatu, almost no one in the village knew that the Li family was going south. Everyone's luggage was taken to the dock for loading at night. So, when the villagers saw the Li family getting into the carriage lightly, they thought they were all going to send their family members away. How did you know that when we arrived at the military camp pier, the gangplank was set up and people of all ages got on the boat? Jian usually didn't seem to care, but now her eyes were red. Occasionally she turned around to wipe her tears, only to find her sister-in-law standing next to her with the child in her arms. She hurriedly urged, "Sister-in-law, get on the boat quickly." Wanner shook her head and said something with a smile. Fourth update: little fairies passing by, don't miss it. Look at the cute flower hugging its legs here. Once again, please vote for must reads in your hands. If you give it 5 stars and it looks good, I will love you even more. Refill, crazy refill. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, delayed flowering. Chapter 870. Chapter 870. Traveling far away quietly. Sister, I won't leave, I want to stay, Wanner said with a gentle yet firm smile. She then looked at Li Lauer and other elders who were seeing her off, and said, I am the eldest daughter-in-law of the Earl's mansion. I enjoy the splendor and wealth of the Earl's mansion, so naturally I have to stick to the Earl's mansion when the storm hits. Besides, my sister is taking care of the old house at Broken Gold Beach, and I am taking care of the Earl's mansion, so we can rely on each other. The most important thing is that brother Jiaran is about to take the exam. I am his wife. I can't help him with anything. I have to prepare food and clothing with my own hands and send him to the exam room. This is my responsibility. Everyone wanted to persuade him, but they all shut up after hearing this. Li Lauer was even more pleased that this daughter-in-law was chosen well. In the future of the Earl's palace, there will be such a mistress, so why not worry about not being able to assist her son, live a peaceful life, and shine the lintel of the family. Jiaran stepped forward directly, hugged his son's swaddling clothes with one hand, and held his wife's hand tightly with the other. Jiyan was caught off guard and was stuffed with dog food. She could only quickly call the people on the boat to send her sister-in-law's luggage down. As a result, Warner said again, "Sister, no need. The things in my few boxes are all for Grandma and everyone to use on the road, and there is no luggage for me." At this time, Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying and others also knew that Warner, mother and son would not go south with the ship. They were lying on the side of the boat with extremely complicated emotions. "I feel sorry for Warner's determination and the difficulty of supporting the Earl's mansion, but I'm also glad that Jiyan at least has a sister-in-law to keep her company, and doesn't have to run between the city and the village." Warner smiled happily and waved to the boat, "Grandma, Aunt, I can't play with you anymore. When you come back, you must bring me more good things." "Okay," Mrs. Li and others agreed in unison, unable to help but blush again. Li Zhensheng, Ji Yi, and Lu Yang finished their chores and rushed over at this time to say a few words of farewell to the Marquis and others. Jiyan stepped forward and hugged Ji Yi, patted her brother's back hard, and said, "Brother, remember, when looking for a sister-in-law, you must find one you like and who treats you well. It doesn't matter what others say. My sister-in-law is going to live with you for the rest of her life. No matter whether you are good or bad, no one else can replace you, so don't wrong yourself." Ji Yi blushed and felt hot and congested. He ruffled his sister's hair, nodded with a smile, "Don't worry, your brother is not a fool, how could he wrong himself? It's you, everyone in the family is gone, so don't be too naughty. If you feel unhappy or get into big trouble, go to the south to find your third brother on the sea, your third brother will be the invincible king." "Ha ha," Jiyan laughed at her brother's pride, hugged him again, and said, "Make sure you help me take good care of Grandma and my mother. I have brought you a lot of wounds and poisons, you must study them thoroughly before using them, don't get confused." "Don't worry," Ji Yi patted his chest, then saluted the Marquis and others. Finally, he pulled Lu Yang and jumped onto the side of the ship. Li Zhensheng also said goodbye to everyone, called the stewards and boatmen, untied the rope, weighed the anchor and set off. The big ship slowly left the dock and merged into the river little by little, becoming smaller and smaller. Everyone on the boat and on the shore was waving. Seeing that the big ship was almost invisible, Jiyan seemed to still hear Grandma shouting, "Fu Niuer, you must take care of yourself. Be obedient." Jiyan wiped away her tears, her face was cold and it hurt a little from the wind. "There seems to be an empty space in my heart, I am scared and sad." The Marquis stepped forward, shielded his daughter from the cold wind with his big cloak, and advised her, "Don't cry. Whenever you want to go, your adoptive father will take you to the boat at any time." "No, I'm not going," Jiyan pulled off the handkerchief, wiped her face hard, and said harshly, "Finally, no one at home cares about me. What if I am just having fun?" Everyone laughed when they heard it and no longer worried. Li Lao Er and Mr. Wen are going back to the Yamen, and Li Lao San is going back to Luoan. Jiaran and brother Li accompanied Warner and her son back to the Earl's mansion. House, Li Lao Si and Li Yong naturally have to stay in the military camp. There was only good news, so I didn't want to go back to Sujintan alone, so I simply went back to the city with my brother and sister-in-law, planning to visit the new shop. The carriage came quickly and left simply, and the dock became quiet in the blink of an eye. The Li family's actions were naturally seen by many people. But most people saw it, and they were just curious about where so many people from the Li family were going by boat, and they couldn't guess. A small number of people are trying to spread the news, but this is the territory of the Northern Expeditionary Army, and it is not easy to get in and out. Let's not talk about the dock. I just said that when the good news arrived in Zindu, I was separated from my brother and sister-in-law. This time Grandma and mothers took away most of the family members, including the cook in the kitchen. but the good news still has people who can help it. Shui Yun followed her as usual. The driver was a veteran, and Muju was with her to protect her. Over at the princess's mansion, Grandma Lu is in charge. The trivial matters of the old house were left to Grandma Lin to take care of. This is the benefit of being a master. As long as you grasp the big things, you don't need to worry too much about the rest of the trivial matters. In the new shop in the business community, Gu Li is laying out the drawings and doing final checks. Turning around, he saw Ji Yin's carriage parked in front of the door, and he hurried out to greet it. Ji Yin took a few steps into the shop, took off his hood, and said with a smile, "It's really cold today." Gilai also smiled and replied, "Yes, Princess, it is almost the 12th lunar month, and the coldest time of the year has arrived." Ji Yin exhaled a breath of white air and did not dare to take off her cloak. Gilai quickly asked someone to prepare hot tea, but Ji Yin waved his hand and called Shui Ling to go and get things done. At the end, she said, "Gugu, please show me around. If there is no problem, I plan to open the fruit and vegetable shop in the next few days. The Chinese New Year is coming soon, and it's a good time to grab money." This impatient tone made everyone laugh. Even Shui Yun, who has always been taciturn, couldn't help but laugh. The princess is happiest when she talks about making money. Muju also raised the corner of his mouth and followed Gu Li and Ji Yin, listening to them talking about the various arrangements of the shop. The two-story restaurant next to it has many problems that need to be considered, and it will take several days to repair it. This fruit and vegetable shop has only one floor and is much simpler. It is cold in winter and fruits and vegetables are afraid of freezing, so keeping warm is the most important, but lighting cannot be ignored. The original door of the shop was replaced with 4 large windows in a tianzi grid, each of which was inlaid with large glass 3 feet square. For this reason, the greenhouse in the princess's mansion became a little dim. Of course, this shop is much brighter. The doors on both sides have been reopened. They are not as big as before, but they are enough to move around. The new door on the left is the entrance, and a small partition is made. Guests can stop here when entering, sweep away the remaining snow on their bodies, rub the solace of their shoes on the red felt, and then lift up the wind curtain to enter the shop. Of course, the partitions are temporary and can be removed at any time during the summer. The floor of the house has been repaired, and a warm-colored log floor has been laid, similar to the floor heating of later generations. When the time comes to light a fire in the backyard, the temperature in the shop is absolutely guaranteed and controllable. End of this chapter.